Hashtag sorry, not sorry, but welcome back to season 3, yeah, with a dwellers below, dwellers below.
Welcome back to the Dwellers Below. We are back. So back that you might say we're backity back, in fact. How are we? I've got today, I'm Danny Paints, and I've got today with me Chris Cousins, Lachie Mulcahy, Dave War, all hanging out. Gentlemen, how are you? Starting with you, Chris.
Back like it's, 1993, the Backstreet Boys. We're back all right. It's been a while. Some of the locals in Scotland have been mocking our long absence. So I guess, fuck you, would be the short
Nice.
version. Are we swearing on the these days?
Yeah, absolutely. Coming out strong. I love it. Dave, what's been going on?
I'm just amazed we're still here after a year, guys. I mean, it's impressive. That's a level of commitment and longevity that no one expected. I'm doing good. Playing lots of narrative games, working out names for units, crafting deep grudges. Loving it.
Beautiful. And Lachie, down below me down there. What's going on?
Hey guys, back. Very good. I just recently, we'll get into it in a bit, but have been figuring out how much I actually love the model of Star Dragons. It's just like, how good are those models, guys? Like, just beautiful, absolutely.
And have
Lovely
you named
model.
it?
Haven't named it yet, though. So pop the suggestions in the chat, and we'll come up with a name after. Must be as good as Mitch's Sebastian back in the day. So that was always a fun name for a Star Dragon.
I love the put it in the chat. We're streaming live.
Yeah, that's right.
In the YouTube comments, I mean.
Like
Get that
sharing
algorithm going.
Well, yeah, look, Chris, you're not wrong. I think every time I am at an event or anywhere talking to any hobby people, they do take a jab at how infrequent our episodes are. I think we're up to biannually. Is that twice a year?
When was our last one?
Oh God, we'd have to go to the
2 months
YouTube.
ago.
And Nick isn't even here, and he's supposed to be running this, so I don't even know what's happening. Let's have a look. Dwellers. Where we are.
Other people's podcasts we've taken over from Nick.
That's right. Nick is dead. Long live the rest of us. 4 months ago. Oh my God, that's not even that long ago. That's fine. Guys, we're doing well.
Hell yeah.
How have you been, mate?
well, I've been well. What I have to do before we go any further is the most important thing before all of our listeners just leave, which they probably already have. It's more than 30 seconds in. But before you all leave, first things first, we are running a Teams event in Melbourne on the 14th and 15th of June called Snake Eyes. And now I've got a little promo for it. If I can work out how all these media assets work. Oh yeah, great. This is good. This is going well. We're just
It
going to
seems
hide
familiar
that.
from last time.
No, that's all right. It's a little smoother than last time. Yeah, this is the event that we're running, Nicholas, Hohen, and I. And it's going to be a whole lot of fun. If you don't know about it, you can find out about it on Facebook. The event is there, and it's probably not many other places yet. It will be on BC. It is on BCP, but Old World Rankings hasn't added it yet because they don't show Teams events yet. So everyone message Gomo and tell them that you want to see it on Old World Rankings. But there's a few things to talk about with Snake Eyes. And the first one, and probably the most relevant one, because we're getting closer to the date, is matchmaking for singles, guys. It is a teams event. It's teams of 3, but there's so many people that have reached out saying, I don't have a team, but I really want to play the event. And it doesn't matter where you're from, get in touch with the email address there or chuck it in the YouTube comments or any of that sort of stuff. Get in contact with us and we'll match you up. There's a whole host of people that want to play this event and don't have a team. So that's rolling. And also, hot off the press is a 15% accommodation discount from Quest Preston, which is just a hop, skip, and a jump from the venue in Coburg. So if you use the code OldWorld25 when making your booking, that's only valid for the event days. So I guess if you want to come to Melbourne on those days and not come to the event, you could still get the discount. That'd suck of you. Don't do that. But that's about it.
Partners who'd like to come for the trip.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. But that's about all I have to plug. More will be coming. I'll ramp up the social media spamming as we get closer to June. But
quite a few signups already as well, I think.
Yes, yeah, 36 players. So what's that?
It's good.
12 teams so far, which is fun. A couple of interstate teams. But I will make a call out right now. None from WA. And someone in WA gave me a shit on the internet before about, oh, we've had teams events in WA, so, you know, it's not the first one. Don't care. Come to our event. That's going to get them.
If you just insult them more, they'll definitely want to come to your event.
That's right. Yeah, just be an asshole, and that's how people will come and support your events. Yikes. No, it's going to be a whole lot of fun, but let's get back to regular chit chat. While I do this, get rid of this. Smooth as.
Fix it all in the edit.
There will be no edit. Nick's not going to edit this. I'm just going to whack that little logo up there so people don't forget. But that's my plug. What I want to know is, what have people been up to in the last 4 months? Hobby-wise, how have you been interacting with the hobby? What's been going on? Dave, you told me that you were doing a whole bunch of narrative stuff. That's what you mentioned.
Yeah, we're doing my local gaming group's second narrative campaign, which is sort of a slow growth thing where you build up an army, not necessarily a new army, but games going from 700 points up and then finishing with a big event. So I've been doing lots of that, playing pirate-themed ogres, which requires me, of course, to take maximum iron blasters as a thematic concession. So Captain Keg Crusher has been riding the seas of the old world, and yeah, doing all right. We've not been playing any updated rules for ogres, and I have been running lead belchers, which has been somewhat disappointing, and I've been running man-eaters with pistols, which have also been somewhat disappointing, because they just cost so many points and they do so little. But I think really enjoying the ogres on the whole, particularly just it turns out that a gut star, if you don't have a dragon to throw at it, is still pretty annoying to deal with for most things. So yeah, been really enjoying that. Very little, only a level 2 fire belly, no real magic, just combat characters in a gut star, and inviting people to choose to engage with that or lose.
I love that.
And have people been engaging with it? Is the question.
Yeah, because it's a narrative campaign. Like you know, the people are playing within the theme, so they're not. Other people are also not taking over the top lists. We've not seen a dragon or a ridden behemoth yet, although I think we will this month. So people have been engaging with it. It did get monstered pretty bad by my friend Andrea, who was running his own equivalent of a gut star, which was a massive unit. I think 7 dragon ogres with 2 chaos characters on monstrous mounts as well.
That'll do it.
Turns out is basically doing what a gut star is doing with better weapon skill, armor, movement, attacks. Strength. Yeah, it stomps everything.
Not core though. Not core.
Not core. No, that's true. That's true. So I did get to go kill some Chaos Warriors first. But yeah, people have been engaging with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Captain, can you tell me more about Captain Keg Crusher, because I need to know if he has a beard or not.
So Captain Keg Crusher does have a beard. He
Yes.
is a Titan Forge model, and he wields a giant fleshy tentacle as his weapon.
Is it the Tenderizer? The Tentacleizer?
Yeah, the Tentacleizer. Yeah.
Cool.
That doesn't sound like a Warhammer thing. It sounds like a very different website.
You accidentally put an X in the wrong place in the name, and well, there you are.
I think they probably intended you to paint the tentacle from the model like purple or something, but I've gone for a ruddy flesh color instead. So he's wielding that. He's got massive kind of Moby Dick fur jacket that looks a little bit like a pimp jacket. He's doing great, doing really good things. Tyrants still really good as long as people don't have mounted characters that turn out they're just better than that. But yeah, he's been great.
Sounds like fun. That's sick. And the other person on that side of the pond, Chris, that old egg. What's been going on? What's been happening?
I've actually thematic continuity. I've been working on some Vampire Coast pirates or Vampire Count Coast, whatever it is. Pirate vampires from the Vampire Coast is my new sort of hobby project. They've finally started to get some paint on them. And at some point, that means I'll be playing something other than Warriors of Chaos. But in the meantime, I've just been playing some Warriors and flapping around with dragons, sometimes in 2s, occasionally 3s. Turns out pretty good in the old world. But looking forward to getting some more games in with a more reasonable kind of army, and we've started to see people putting some more restrictions on what you can do with the silly flyers. So I think optimistic that I don't yet have names for my characters, but that's because so far all they've done on the battlefield is disappoint me.
What's the setup for the 3 dragon list? Because they must be pretty lean, right? Like for the 3 of them.
Yeah, there's been from the Throne of Skulls, the Games Workshop tournament, which had a 500-point cap on characters. Some of the tournaments, especially around Newcastle, have adopted that, and so you can take a cheap Chaos Lord on a dragon, a cheap level 3 wizard on another dragon, and then a Magma Dragon, and that's your 1,000 points of characters, 375 points of core. You then get of rare. You get 500 points of core, 1 Dragon Ogre Shartak, and your list is done.
Do you like the Warp Dragon, Chris?
Yeah, it's so just so good. Like by itself, it's fine, but in combination with another dragon or another big mobile threat, becomes super good. And people are leaning very heavily on ward saves. Just taking that away is also great. I was a big fan of the Giant Spawn, but I think the dragon might be better.
Yeah, I only played against it once, but was in a list that had no other dragons, and it was pretty good. But it is not a character dragon in terms of survivability. So I found when you weren't being distracted by the Chaos Lord and the dragon and a bunch of other stuff, just things like cannonballs just do shave enough off it for it not to be a complete terror. The ignoring ward save thing was awful though. It went into the flank of my Stonehorn BSB. And then a Chaos Lord went in the front with an Ogre Blade, and that no ward save just wrecked me. Really.
I'm not sure that the second dragon would have helped him at that point with the Chaos Dragon and like the Lord going in the front.
Yeah,
poor PSD.
So, I was going to make a very silly joke about, 14 months in, 16 months in, we're only now working out the dragons are good, Chris. But I really like actually what's happening is like you guys are just talking about, there's just a distinction. Like instead of just like, dragon, we're getting flavors, like Chaos Dragon, good, very scary. Warpfire Dragon, nice for second dragon, And
or third dragon.
If you've got second dragon or third dragon, it's like, it's not, I've got a dragon. It's what flavor and how many.
Yeah, at the Newcastle event I went to, I think we worked out there was over 1 dragon per player at the event.
Gross.
I love that. Well, I don't know. I'm putting together the trivia that's going to be on the Saturday for Snake Eyes, which means I'm reading all the books and picking out really obscure bits to be really mean with the trivia. But the first thing, like the first page of the Old World rulebook, is all about the dragons and how the dragons rule the world and how they're big evil beasts and they're the best. And they kind of put it right there. I mean, we shouldn't be surprised that dragons are good in this game.
That's like the FAQ with the commentary where the Old World designers were basically like, yes, dragons are working the way that we wanted them to. This is not a mistake. We just want them to be the best thing in the game.
Dragons are good, and dragons should be good. Let's not go too deep into that just yet. Lachie, what else been going on, man? What's been happening? What's been happening with your hobby life? You found a love for dragons as well, apparently.
I did. I was really enjoying playing the ogres, but then I decided that I actually wanted to play a real army.
Actually, wanted to win games.
Wanted to win games for a start. Wanted something that had, is being supported. I was thinking this around the time of the Arcane Journal release. I was like, oh yeah, there'll be some cool stuff in the Arcane Journal that I can use. Like, let's play high elves. Turns out there's not really much actually that I want to play in the Arcane Journal, to be honest. But I still went out and bought a high elf army secondhand, which was really cool. It's breaking Danny's mind because the guy I bought it off has spray painted the whole army, and has done like the basing really well. It has done the basing. So basically, what I've got is a spray painted army with that is fully based on the correct basing. They're all magnetized, which is like good. It says it's going to save me a bunch of time, but I need to paint now. All the models. So it was good. I've had a few games with it now, and again, really liking Star Dragons.
Lachie, no, it's wrong. Have you?
It's breaking your brain. I know.
don't know. Maybe we need to see, maybe if you could chuck up a picture or something, Lachie. No, don't. It'll hurt my eyes. It's spray painted, like base coated silver. Sure, whatever. Doesn't matter what the color. But then he's completed the basing. What?
It's an insane way to do an army.
Insane. An entire army. The whole army is.
Hey, look, I like it. I like it. I'm not the biggest fan of basing.
The rims are painted, but the models are not.
It's all magnetized. It's all pinned as well. Like he's pinned individually, like all the legs and stuff on all the models. Really cool. I also bought this. I've got this out and I've just spray painted it, but you might be able to see it there. It's the 4th edition Imric on Dragon. So because of course I needed 2 dragons because the actual army came with a dragon. So I didn't play the double dragon list over the weekend, but that might come out in the future.
Sorry, I did interrupt you to just whinge about your army. You were talking about the games you had.
Yeah, so do we want to talk about that quickly now? I won't go play by play or anything, but we played it.
Yeah,
Yeah, is that all right?
Yeah.
Danny and I played just a 3-gamer tournament on the weekend. I think there was only 9 or 10 players. So it was a smaller turnout than normal. We've normally had about 20 or so. But it was still good to get 3 games in. I was running a Prince on a Star Dragon, like the fully kitted out version where he is pretty much impossible to kill. Had a level 4 on High Magic, which I immediately regretted when I realized that the High Magic enchantments don't last in your opponent's turn. So really regretted that. Really wish that I had Battle Magic because I'm actually just addicted to the Fire guy, as we know. Anyway, I had a block of Seaguard with the Razor Standard, a couple of units of Reavers, a couple of units of 6 Swordmasters with Drilled, just little kind of annoying units to go around. Had a big block of 8 Dragon Princes, and then I think I had 5 Shadow Warriors and 5 what's the sisters called? The
Sisters of Avalon.
Sisters of Avalon, that's one. So lots of shooting, lots of avoidance. It's really just the dragon goes in and kills everything is generally what my experience has been. I played one test game before the event with Jabe, and I kind of just run everything at him. He killed everything, but then the Star Dragon killed the rest of his army, so it was about a draw. So I was like, cool, if I just play a bit more points denial with the rest of my army and just go into the dragon, I should be able to, do okay. And that's kind of ended up what happening across the 3 games. The first game, it was against Bretonnians. He was a bit of a new player, but a nice guy. Again, the dragon just went in and just killed everything, even with multi-charges and everything into the dragon. Well, it was interesting. He actually he had the Monster Slayer sword or the whatever it is, but he also had the Ogre Blade, and we worked out that actually it doesn't stack, so he loses the benefits of the.
Oh, on the same model.
Yeah. I don't think it would have helped him in this instance, but it wasn't an optimized list. So that was a big win there. Game 2, played against George, who basically had a Star Dragon list. I copied the exact same Star Dragon build off him, but he had a big unit of Sisters of Avalon. I think it was like 28 of them with like 3 characters in there, basically teleporting around the board, shooting, Plague of Rusting things off. Really scary. We kind of danced around a bit, and I think I got down a little bit at the end. He killed a few things quicker than I wanted to, kind of in turns 4 and 5. So I kind of just fanged my dragon at him. He threw his dragon in, and mine luckily just came out on top. He broke in the second round of combat, and that's a 50-50 absolutely. Because it's 50-50 to lose the combat, and then obviously you need to fail a leadership 10 break check, so I was able to run him down, which put us out of the draw actually, which is good. As he killed my level 4 in the last turn as well. That was a draw, and then in the last round I played against Beastman. My 400 point block of Dragon Princes fled a charge turn 1 because he baited them very smartly. So I fled. I thought I had plenty of room as we're playing Battle for the Pass. I rolled 666s to flee. So I was like, cool, they're going a long way, and then they didn't rally on their leadership 10 check. So cool. Turn 1 or 2, I'd lost 400 points. Didn't matter though. Star Dragon went in. Basically, it went. I think he charged one of the big spawns, the giant spawns, turn 1, killed it in his turn, and then pivoted and basically just went through his army on the side. Because on Battle for the Pass, of course, there's not heaps of frontage. Everything's really close together, and so the Star Dragon's just gone through unit after unit. So it was a really fun and interactive game. It was very
literally the same problem happened facing Star Dragons with Chaos Spawn. They're perfectly statted so that they survive round 1, but then die in the second round, and then they just get the free round to charge.
It's really good, and he had a Doom Ball in a block of Gore. And, against ogres, that's just absolutely terrifying. You just can't deal with that Doom Ball. But, with the Star Dragon, he just goes in and, you're hitting on 4s or something. And you might not do many wounds with the actual attacks, but the Thunderstomp just comes in and just wrecks the Doom Ball. And it's pretty, I killed him in 1 turn, but and probably spiked because he had a 4-up ward save. But over 2 turns, 2 rounds of combat, there's not much that Doom Ball can actually do, I think, unless you get really lucky with the Hag Tree Fetish early on, which he wasn't able to do against me. So that was a win as well for me, which was good. So I finished on 2 wins and a draw.
That player, James Chadwick, the previous round had played George, the other identical Star Dragon, and the same thing happened. The Star Dragon went in and stomped the Doom Ball to death. Which I find is my experience fighting dragons. I think, I might survive this. I could survive this. Could I survive this round of combat? And then the stomps happen. And I go, oh, wait, stomps, of course. And I die.
The Strength 7 AP2 is just... particularly for a 5 or 6 on the dice.
Richie from Darwin After Dark has these rants about Thunderstomp against dwarves. And I just think it is that thing that you think it's not that much because it's only D6 or D6 plus 1, but when you realize that's not rolling to hit, so it's actually gaining an additional 7 attacks or something like that. The impact of it is just massive. You really feel it on the Stonehorn in comparison that has no stomps, where it just turns out 4 attacks where you have to roll to hit, not very good, and D3 or D6 stomps, your reliability is just so much higher.
The combination of some monsters having much more generous stompage than others, and when you get the -2 on the armor saves, being a behemoth makes such a huge difference. And very much the haves and the have-nots. And in the old world, the dragons have.
It feels a bit silly. I'm sure there's things that can beat it, maybe. But yeah, I think the list that I took was reasonable. As I said, if I go battle magic and maybe one or two little tweaks across the rest of the list, like, it's even better. But it feels good to play. But it's
Do
fun.
you think the Sea Guard have a place? And if you had different models, would you drop them for a bunch of archers or silver helms?
I'd definitely try it. Yeah, so that's right. I don't have silver helms or archers. I think the 5-man blocks of archers are obviously very good. I think silver helms are really cool, but I like the Sea Guard. Particularly with the Razor Standard. Chipping wounds off. Like I did 2 wounds over 2 rounds to George's Star Dragon, just with the archers, which was cool. It can happen.
Nice.
Whereas again in that game, I just shot his silver helms off with my arrows, like with the sisters and the Sea Guard and Shadow Warriors over a few
Yeah,
turns.
sisters are your silver helms don't like seeing that on the other side of the table.
No.
That's a bad day.
At the end of the day, it's just a 3-up armor, and even fireballs, like into silver helms, like, I'm very happy to be putting fireballs into them.
Yeah, Cav with 3-up armor is still just a 3-up. Not so nice.
Yeah, those poor dragons that only have a 3-up armor save.
Yeah, only a 3-up armor save, and then only a 5-up ward save, and only a 5-up regen. It's like, come on, and only a once-off or 2 once-off 2-up ward save, and the 2-up armor. It's not so good.
But not everyone who went to that event took a dragon, right, Danny?
No, that's right. I played Empire, basically, sort of. I had some guys on horses, some humans on horses, some humans on foot with bows in their hands. I had some heroes on Pegasi. I had some cannons.
Imperial Pegasus?
It was a Pegasus. I think it might have been Imperial. Was it Imperial? Was it? Might have been Royal.
Imperial
was Royal.
Emperor, and a royal would involve royalty. Not quite the same thing.
Yeah, I think it was no. So probably no emperors per se involved technically. But then also, I was playing an army that lives quite close to the Empire, geographically, almost part of it, you would say. It's similar area, but and definitely don't recognize royalty. Like a king or someone. No. So, but yeah, I was playing
your Empire to play Bretonians.
Yeah, it was sick. I loved it. Partly because I ended up winning the event, like not to bury the lead. But it was so funny. It was summed up by Sam, who came down and said hello in round 1. He was watching the end of round 1, and he was like, "Oh, Danny, it's so funny that you're suddenly good at Warhammer now that you've just changed armies."
That's funny.
Turns out you weren't shit. Turns out that just Empire are extremely hard.
Yeah, correct. And it's funny. Like I had one practice game against Nick, where he had changed his list, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I think he probably like softened it a little bit because he thought I was bringing Empire." And then I opened my box and I was like, "Here's my guys," and he was like, and he was like, "Oh, I would have loved to try my other list against Bretonians." But yeah, everything that Empire does, but better. And the difference is wild. It's funny playing Warhammer and having the opponent actually care about what you're doing and where you're moving, and like worried about the ability of your like units and stuff. Because when you play Empire, they're just like, "I'm gonna come and kill you," and then they do. But yeah, so I just yes.
One of the funniest examples of that is just like, why are the Empire cannons like cost more? They're like 120 against the Bretonian Exile ones, which are 100, and they're the exact same, right?
Yeah, so the Empire cannons are 25 points more. 25 points more. Yeah, so 125, and then bombards are 100, and the bombards have a better misfire table where
Yeah.
on a 6 they still shoot anyway. So, so it's
Just
yeah,
for
it
no
doesn't make a lot
reason,
of
right?
sense. No, and I was in one of my games, like it was my opponent was having a little whinge about the things that Bretonians get, and I was just like, oh yeah, and this and this and this, and you get stubborn for free and veteran for free. Oh, and by the way, you can't fly for 40 points. Like all this, when you list it out, there's a lot of stuff. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. I played 3 wonderful games. One was against a fellow Bretonian, not playing Exiles, which meant that I had the ability to get the blessing and he did not, which seems stupid and they should fix. But that he's playing a very beautifully painted. David Lachie.
Yeah.
He's playing very beautifully painted freehand banners and everything Bretonian list with a duke on horseback and whatnot. And not at all optimized, but just very lovely and very beautiful. And that game went pretty quick. I managed to murder everything my list is what you see on the internet: 2 units of Pegasi, the Vanguard banner, 2 cannons, the 2 barons, a level 3 wizard, Ruby Ring Law Familiar. Nothing innovative or new. And then the second game was great. It was against Chris Penwarden, who's a very good player. Runs a pretty tight Tomb Kings list that's really hard to get points out of. And last time we played, he beat me very handily, and it was really satisfying because he made a small deployment mistake, or maybe not even a mistake, just misjudgment, where he put his Necro Sphinx within 28 inches of my 29-inch turn 1 threat range. And I made that charge and killed the Necro Sphinx and Arcane Urgency, the other unit of Pegasi, and they were both in his backlines in his turn 1. And we were playing win-loss draw, actually. So I killed what I could, and then he had his 2 massive units, of one of Skelly's, one of Tomb Guard, with all his characters and stuff. Oh, and his catapult blew itself up just to add insult to injury. And yeah, got to the point where I was like, I've killed all the points I can get. I'm just going to run away from you now, and you're too slow to catch me. Okay? That was game. So, engaging long, interesting old world games.
So how many points do you think that was? Roughly?
I got about 4. I don't know. I wrote this down somewhere. 460 points out of him, and that was enough. He didn't have anything to catch me.
For the listeners, we're playing just at these events, win-loss draw. So obviously 150 points, whatever the minimum would just be a win, right? So in a event where you're doing the 20-0 system, actually there's it's worthwhile him either coming to chase you and trying to get some points, or you going in harder to try and
get more points for sure.
It from maybe a 12-8 that might be, or a 13-7.
Yeah, that's a 12-8 if that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting how it affects the mentality for win-loss draw, right? Because you did exactly what you needed to do.
Did you think that you could take the combat blocks if you went in and it just wasn't worth the risk, or did you think you likely would have lost even if you piled into one of the combat blocks?
No, I think I'm maneuverable enough and have enough output to take the blocks one at a time, multi-charge them with both all the heroes and both units of pegs. But I think so. I think I can do enough.
It just wasn't worth.
Yeah.
Buying it. Yeah.
No. Because he's a very good player as well. It's made me work for every inch of it. But I think just not worth the risk if you can take a win in a win-loss draw system. But yes, they're the blocks aren't the Tomb Guard and stuff are very scary, but not invulnerable. You can really in game 1, I hit an infantry block and 3 heroes did 20 wounds, which was wild. And then I had the pleasure of playing George, who was the uncomped Travel Mystical Pathways 27 Sisters of Avalon and a Star Dragon. And that game went for as long as it possibly could, which was really, really fun. It was really fun to be in a game like that and not just be immediately out of it. And he played really well. He played really, really well. And yeah, it was on a nice edge for the majority of it. And the TMP block can just go so many places if TMP is uncomped. Like, I was within an inch of him, like with all my guys and my little guys, and then he managed to finagle himself just outside of 19 with this because of the size of the block and the way it works. But that went right down to the wire. And the Bombards took 7 wounds off the Star Dragon, which was great. I didn't kill it, so no points. And the Bombards also killed, I think, 17 of the sisters as they were running away and teleporting away. But didn't get them to under 25%, so no points. So that ended up being a really close one as well. I think he made my unit of Core Knights run off the board, and I killed everything except the dragon and the sisters, and finagled a little win, which was my first one ever in my whole life. So
Ooh, go Danny! Danny plays.
Danny plays. That's right. I should change the display name.
Is that undefeated in tournament games this year?
Yes. Yeah, that it is. That's CanCon and this game. That's good, actually. I should say that more.
Was that because you were on draws in CanCon?
Yes. Yeah. 3 wins, 3 draws. One of them was a handshake 10-10, go to the pool, sort of a draw as well. I'm going to ignore everything Nick's putting in the private chat down there.
Because it doesn't fit the narrative.
No, that's right.
I was definitely sad that we didn't get to play Danny, but also happy that you didn't get to beat me.
I think the on balance, when you and George were playing and I'd won 2 games, I was like, I really want to play Lachie's version of that list.
Yeah.
Because it would be much easier to catch.
His was better for sure.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll be playing with the filth, Danny, or do you think you've scratched that itch and you've got it out of your system a bit?
It's only been 3-4 games. It's not yet, not done with it yet. I'm actually really enjoying. So I got a really good deal on a bunch of Bretonian stuff, which you can find for chips. And I thought, I'll just whip this together. I'll do it really quick. The new sort of style where everything has the same heraldry. And here we are, and I'm halfway through individual colors and symbols and.
You're maniac.
So that'll be fun. It's a really fun project, and the new Duke/Baron models are beautiful to work with. I'm doing a little sort of exile, like they're exiled for a reason theme. So they've got chaos bits, and they look a little evil, which is a lot of fun. Having a lot of fun. But the point I wanted to make with all of that is that I'm better at Warhammer than Nick. Just obviously and undeniably better.
Proven. Yeah.
And everyone on the podcast agrees. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your best ranking dweller at the last 2 events that you've played.
Yeah. Let's ignore that other event that Nick mentioned in the chat. I forgot about.
The reigning Australian dweller.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know if I can take it.
Until you and Dave get a grudge match down, then.
Yeah, that's right. I think I'll stick with the Bretonians.
To be fair though, that
Can you play your ogres, Dave?
That Brett list is a nightmare for my wood elves as well. That's it. That Brett list is really awful for the woodies. You can try and win it, but you're racing against the clock, and it's very unpleasant.
Is it just because they get you too quickly? Like they just come across the board and
they're too quick, and it's too hard to. You can't avoid the arcs of sight because they don't play Warhammer Fantasy. They play 40k, and you just don't get to play properly. They just get to choose a unit every turn to kill. Your dragon's quite annoying for them to deal with because they're hitting you on 5s, and so even with the Monster Slayer, the Bretonian Lord has a pretty good chance not to do it just because he's hitting you on 5s. but the pegs, you really need a bunch of damage to go off. And since the Sisters of the Thorn got nuked, I'm not convinced I have enough damage to get through the pegs in 2 turns, which is what I need to happen.
They're really surprisingly survivable because, like, they say, like a 3-up until you get the ward set happening, like they seem really squishy. But I was being shot at pretty consistently by 20 plus sisters teleporting around, and they don't die. Like, and especially if you're distributing the hits amongst heroes and the rest of the unit when they're lower, it just slows down your ability to get points out of it. It's really interesting.
Yeah, they're super annoying. They're really annoying. The Bretts and the Tomb Kings are the 2 ones that the Wood Elves I found struggle with a lot. I mean, I think Ogres, it's just game over, right? Against that Brett list, you just don't even roll dice. The killing blow on Ogres is just atrocious. But yeah, that Brett list is the one that really makes my Wood Elves have a.
You can mitigate the killing blow with the Death Cheater, can't you? Or is that just not enough?
You can, but it's 1 dice, and even if it's not going into, even if it doesn't go into your Lord, they just charge Mournfang, right? And you get like 1 killing blow against Mournfang. You've done 4 wounds from that on top of whatever you might.
Is it killing blow and hero killing blow?
Yes.
Was it?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and so your BSB on a Stonehorn doesn't want it. Your Iron Guts don't want it. Your Mournfang don't want it. And at that point, that's your whole army.
And then there's also 2 cannons and a Frontier Axe doing multi-wounds as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Suffice to say, it's awful. The Wood Elves do have more of a chance because if you get lucky, Wood Elves get first turn and you get a bunch of shots off, you can spike a bunch of damage into the Peg Knights, Pillar of Fire, Fireballs, 40 poison shots a turn, etc. But once they start being able to bounce through units, it's just not a good time.
Yeah, if the Pegasi can survive long enough to deliver the heroes, then it's not good. That's not good. Yeah, it's a very, very different experience of Warhammer playing something that is actually one of the very good lists in the game.
And you put in the hard yards playing Empire for a long time when they were not top tier.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it's interesting. Like, I've played a lot more than I had in the last few years recently, and got to the point where I was really feeling the limitations of the Empire faction, which is a weird thing to experience, because I was like, oh, I know what I should do here, or I know what my best possible chance of victory is here, and it's still really unlikely. Like, I'm rolling all the dice I can, I'm doing the right things, and I'm still not actually going to get over the top, which is a really frustrating way to play.
Like, learning that way, though. Like, if you learn how to play with Empire and then can take those skills and apply them to Bretonnians, like if you're competitive with Empire, and then you get to upgrade from your butter knife to a broadsword, then
yeah. It's funny though. It's very much what you said, Dave. Like that, they don't play Warhammer really. It's 40k. It's shoot, skirmish. Yeah. So I think I'm gonna have a whole lot of fun with them, and I'm gonna play them as much as I can. But I think probably the Nerf Hammer is coming in, well deservedly so.
Do you think the Nerf Hammer is actually coming? I mean, because we've been talking about this idea that there's going to be rebalances, that the Games Workshop's going to play with things. We're now, 15 months in, something like that, and we've had a couple of incredibly minor FAQ nerfs to Fanatics, Wood Elf Sisters of the Thorn. Is there anything else?
The Dazzling Helm?
The Dazzling,
The Dazzling Helm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there'll be a rebalance per se, but it would make sense to do it once all the armies are out. I feel like all the existing ones, when Cathay comes along, and I like that would be the timing, and that seems like not too far away.
It completely depends if they want to do a second edition, right? Like if second edition.
That's right. Yeah.
2026 is actually going to be a thing. You know, the rumors say it's a potential.
But
You know,
hey,
you
if I get
could
another
use a
12
second
months of this,
edition.
great.
That's right. Well, you could do a second edition and just like fix skirmisher rules, right? And just be like, cool, actually, they're going to play
Yeah.
Warhammer again.
I
Like
mean, you could
they
fix
did in 8th
skirmisher rules
edition.
with like one FAQ.
You could, of
Not
course.
fix the rules. The rules are not actually existent, really. But I mean, you could put a patch.
Add some rules.
You put a patch in.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
But based on playing a bunch of Lord of the Rings, which is run by the same part of Games Workshop Studio, I would not be expecting big active rebalancing like the online rumor mill is suggesting. The best Lord of the Rings would get was a very occasional nerfing of the one thing that the internet was complaining about. Nothing holistic and
that's what we've seen, right? That's what we've seen, as Dave said, with the fanatics and like lore familiar and things like that, like very specific things, rather than like this whole army is just busted. We need to tone it down. Then I agree. They're probably not doing
until the studio announces it. I will be operating under the assumption that we're kind of on our own, like we always have been with Warhammer Fantasy and Army Balance. And I guess we just need to. We shouldn't hold out hope that Games Workshop will rescue us from Games Workshop in the near future.
So it's your opinion that we need comp, Chris?
My opinion is either we need comp or we need to accept, like we just need to kind of grit our teeth and accept that we're playing with basically the rules we've got currently. That we shouldn't be expecting something big and balance changing and meta warping that's going to make ranked infantry good again. I don't think that's on the cards.
So
it's an interesting perspective there, where it's like one of those two, like on our own, whether we grit our teeth or whether we do it or we subscribe to a comp system. And all the comp system is a different way of playing the game. And all any comp system is doing is making other things better, and the things that are currently strong not as strong, which is like I think is totally fine. If you want to play a different version, you can do that.
To engage in a bit of semantics as well, like it depends on what you mean by comp. If we mean composition restrictions, like what you can put in your army, it's not even a different game. It's just like you and your mate saying, "Hey, let's not take dragons this week." Most comp systems are just that on a larger and more complex scale. But until you start changing the rules for how things work on the tabletop, it's basically the same as just working out with your friends where the appropriate line is that lets everyone have a fun game.
Which I would say we've actually been running really heavy comp restrictions since the game started. We've had rule of 3 and we've had no allies. Basically almost all the tournaments I've seen. Allies are framed as a core component of list construction in the game, and I've seen almost no one really run them as a legitimate option. And rule of 3, which completely undermines the way that they've done unit restrictions for specific armies, which are often the stuff that's restricted is like, you can only take 4 of them, guys. That's the really bullshit stuff. You can only take 4 cannons. So I think we've actually been running from the get-go very heavy comp restrictions. And I think the question is now, what do we want the comp restrictions to do for us? Because I think at the moment we've accepted those two fairly without debate, and not then considered more stuff, which I think is kind of curious.
Yeah, and I've found as well, like with the rule of 3 and what you're talking about there, people, or I find myself adhering to that sometimes without thinking about it. Like it's become such a common, like rule of 3 particularly has become such a common term, online when people are talking about lists and events that are being run, that I think quite often people will put their list together with those in mind when it might not necessarily be in effect at the event they're going to. Like I'm really interested for ARC, which is going to be a 2-day event coming up in Australia, in Melbourne. There is no comp. There's no it's it's open season as far as the players back is concerned. There's nothing restricting anyone doing anything. So I wonder if people will want to run the lists that are maybe particularly skew, or like 20 individual gyrocopters or whatever it is, or they'll be like, I want to play with the list that I know will be able to run at most events because it does comply to the sort of accepted restrictions. It's really interesting.
We've run 2 events in Scotland, at least. Well, I've run 2 events in Scotland with no rule of 3 restrictions at all. And one person in one of those tournaments took 4 copies of a unit, and that was like, as far as I know, the only thing that would have violated the rule of 3 across 60 lists and 2 events. Now, one of those had like some other composition restrictions, but encouraging people to take multiple, like lots of units rather than big Death Stars. So, I think a lot of people just aren't going to want to run the lists that people were worried about when they put the rule of 3 in place early on. And then, as Dave says, it just kind of stuck. Inertia doing a lot of work there.
I mean, there's a handful that I think people would run if you had no restrictions. I think tons of Dragon Ogres seems really good to me. 7 individual Dragon Ogres. And I think Empire maxing cannons doesn't seem broken, but you would take them, I think, if you had the option.
Yeah.
If you had the option to take them.
Well,
and if I was running 6, I think, yeah. And if I was running Wood Elves, my core would all be minimum 5 model units of archers, and nothing else, unless if you didn't have rule of 4 or whatever.
Almost the same with Empire, right? With min 5 archers.
Yeah, I think the spend 5 archers would probably happen a reasonable amount. I think that like 7 individual Dragon Ogres is just worse than the stock Chaos list. Like a Warpfire Dragon for those points is better, and your characters are better. I think possibly the same for the Dwarf Gyrocopter spam, although I haven't played against it enough to know.
So I don't think the Dragon Ogres would go like that in a Chaos list. I think they go like that in
Beastman.
Yeah, because you don't have the dragon, but you've got 2 Chaos Spawn, lots of the Dragon Ogres, and then probably the what do you call them? Pumbas for core, the
Razorgore.
So actually, getting rid of rule of 3 would be good because it would give Beastmen a leg up who arguably need it, and it wouldn't really benefit Chaos who don't need the help.
You'd play a 20 drop list, and none of your drops would really give the opponent more than like 140 points, except for possibly a character or 2. And then suddenly things like the dragon and the massive teleporting blocks don't get to claim many points. And I think that would be a potential way for Beastmen. But I'm curious. I'm curious. What do you think, Lachie? Would you want to see more intense comp or rule restrictions at this point?
I'm definitely open to them. I just want things to be tested properly, and again, like I've always been like, lighter touch, like do things incrementally, not, just massive sweeping changes, from a couple of guys in the other side of the world, like just deciding what's good and like who the winners are and who the losers are. So yeah, I'm absolutely would be open to,
What would it mean to be tested properly? Do you mean like GW testing, which is you get a few of your mates around Nottingham?
Yeah, that's true. The good point. I think, again, it probably lends itself to being like an iterative process. So like, start small and you add things, so you start, it might be, South Coast GT back in the day, which had their big comp system, but like, rather than doing like a full pack out of the gates, it's actually like, here's some smaller, minor incremental changes here and there, and then we might build on them rather than going full hog.
Yeah, like an organic sort of a...
Would be my...
Sorry, Chris, you go.
Yeah, there's a couple of problems with... I think what Luckie's describing would be nice, but there's a couple of practical things that get in the way of it. One is that you don't actually run that many events, even within a sort of scene, to gradually kind of test and add things. Like within the Scottish scene, even if there's like 10 or 12 events in the year, we're probably getting up towards that. That's not a lot of scope for making kind of well planned out iterative changes. And the other potential problem is if some of the changes you want to make kind of only work if you're making other changes as well. So, for example, if you get rid of the rule of 3, maybe people take 10 units of 5 archers as core, but if you're also adding in scenarios that prioritize, ranks or something like that, then you put in a counterbalance to that. And so you kind of need to introduce them all at once to get the desired effect.
But then if you
So it's not
introduce
saying
too many
incrementally.
things at once, right? If you introduce too many things at once, then there might be unintended consequences. And I don't think that there's that much you can do, honestly, to make infantry blocks much better in the game without absolutely something like fundamental changes to the game, you know.
So whether infantry themselves or not is sort of the point. I think the thing I'm kind of advocating for more is that sometimes you need like several pieces of the picture to avoid some of those unintended consequences. Like if we say, well, we don't need the rule of 3 because Dragon Ogre spam would be actually good for Beastmen and not help Chaos, and we're okay with that outcome. Then the unintended effect of people spamming core units is bad, unless there's another lever that we've pulled to kind of counterbalance that, whatever it might be. And so that's why sometimes you maybe want to, rather than incrementally grow things, sit on something for a while, try and work out a lot of the kinks, and then maybe introduce the whole set at once, rather than adding in bit by bit, which might not actually let you test the thing you're trying to test, which is how all the pieces work together.
Yeah. No, I agree. But fundamentally, there's a lot of testing there, right?
So I think where I'm more skeptical about that is, though, the exact balance seems complicated and like unlikely to be achieved. But there does seem to be quite a lot of fairly obvious things that are just too good. For example, make Talisman of Protection cost 100 points if you have more than 5 wounds. And all 5+ ward saves, you know? I don't think that would have massive unintended flow-on effects. It would make Ogre Stonehorns worse, and almost no other things that people are taking.
Makes Chaos Dragons comparatively better because they don't have to buy the ward save.
Yeah, it does.
Or you like you say regeneration or ward, pick one. You know.
Yeah. Or you have to use the mounts. Behemoths have to use the mounts armor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Personally, I prefer to avoid changing the way models work on the table for a couple of reasons. One is that, at least for me, I find that easy to forget how models work if we've changed the rules, what they do significantly. And the other one is just that it makes it a little harder to play games against people who are maybe practicing for different comp systems. So, if all of your models have just the same rules, you can play someone with like the ETC comp against someone playing with the Swedish comp. And whilst your armies might not be kind of balanced against each other because you're using different comp systems, they'd still interact in the same way at the tabletop. That's my reservation with kind of fundamental rules changes. But I think for some of the problems, and Dragons, Behemoths are a perfect example of that, the problem is in the fundamental rules, not in the sort of specific items or army book things being the problem.
Yeah, it's a hard one because even if you made Dragons way more expensive, it would mean that
they're just holding on to the more points,
Exactly. They you don't have as strong an army on the whole, but you're still not giving the opponent any way to kill that dragon. And I think the problem with something like a dragon for me is more that for casual players, when they play against a dragon, you really need to convince them, actually, you need to decide that you're not going to play this game. You're not going to fight the dragon, and that you're not going to have that epic combat, and that if you try to do that, you will give the opponent a win. And that's a fundamental rules problem, not a points problem. It would help more. But again, the more experienced tournament players aren't having as many problems with dragons at all anyway. It's more the new or less competitive people that end up with bad thinking that the old world is not as fun a game as it is because of the way that dragons work.
I think it's not just an experience gap though. Like experienced players can deal with dragons more easily, but also are predominantly playing the small number of lists that are very tailored to deal with those dragons. And so you end up with like a very skewed picture of what people are actually taking. Why does everyone take like a heroic killing blow Bretonnian Lord? Well, it's because you need to heroic killing blow the dragon. Why are people taking 80, 90, 160 poison archers in a block that can always stand and shoot? These are the kinds of reactions that have been prompted by, even for people who know exactly how to minimize or mitigate dragons, it's still driven to that.
Yeah.
So if we end up in the same situation in a year, then Chris, your hypothetical seems to me, in terms of being very well planned and all that, it seems like it won't happen. Or at least it would take a coordination of something like an ETC level organization to make it happen that I don't see materializing. Would your preference be to just accept that what we're dealing with is an uncomped game, and that, if you don't like playing that style, just play another game?
No, my preference would be for every tournament to be lots of TOs to be trying to come up with their own well thought out sort of composition restrictions and tournament packs that are going to lead to the game that they would like to play. And for some people, that will be no holds barred uncomped tournaments. Other events hopefully will try lots of different things, scenarios, army list restrictions. Personally, I don't really want like core rules changes as something that's introduced into tournaments, but some other people will disagree and want to do that. And I don't want to like let the market decide, but I think people should be trying the different things at different tournaments because that is the best testing that we've got. And maybe this ends up being the kind of incremental or at least iterative change that Lachie was talking about. I'm kind of more like introduce your whole pack at once and then like run it at some small events, start working out where it goes wrong, rather than just adding like one restriction or rule at a time. But I think that kind of organic process will happen and kind of already is happening. We're seeing people like borrow ideas from each other in different tournaments, grab different bits of other tournaments, packs and things. And I think we'll head in the right direction, or at least for me, the right direction will be just having variety. And then some tournaments might be more or less popular based on whether they're no comp or heavy comp or whatever that might be.
I think that's part of my hesitancy, actually, Chris. It's like, if people do start going the whole hog and just like doing these sweeping changes, whether you choose like the route of like making army list restrictions like through percentage of characters or whatever, or the other route, which would be like actual rules changes to units and things like that. But like if they went down a path that I didn't agree with, like massively, and like let's just say like this random group like wants to do something and like it gains traction, and then it's like actually this is not the game I wanted to play now as well. So I think that's probably what I'm nervous about. Obviously, we'd all love a comp pack that hypothetically exists that we all would love to want to play, but getting to that point seems pretty tricky to me.
I think. Sorry, keep going.
No, I wasn't going to say anything else. Probably the last point I'd just make would be like, I'm a big fan of making choices. So like, Chris, like I'd probably support, that line of thinking again, like not fundamentally changing units themselves, but making choices. So like you can only have a dragon or a level 4 or whatever. You can't have both, as an example. Whether you do that through capping points limits or actually having a hard and fast rule there, I'd probably prefer that.
Yeah, I guess one thing to add as well, and I think Lachie's right that some of the changes people might make might lead to a game that or a style of Warhammer that we don't really want to play, but playing without any composition restrictions has led to a very distinctive style of army on the tabletop, and for at least some people, that's not what they want to play, or that's not how they envisage Warhammer being, and that might make that's not a problem when you're playing with your friends and you can just kind of agree to tone things down. But if you're playing new people, whether that's at a club or at a tournament, You don't necessarily get to set those boundaries as easily before the game, and that's where having some of those restrictions can potentially make the, I guess, lead to fewer of those kinds of experiences where people just say, Old World's just dragons fighting against poison blocks. I don't really find that fun. I'll go play, I don't know, Kings of War, Tiddlywinks, something else.
I think that's a hard one because I found that the competitive end for me is really fun. And actually, it's actually a really good addition. The tabletop decisions are really intense. There's a lot of thinking going on. You're going to have to do positioning stuff really matters because of things like dragons. I think the problem is more being, if you've got a casual friend who runs Lizardmen, you just need to really convince them to buy another army, and they're just going to have an awful time. Like that, they're just going to have a really awful time, and that there's not going to be anything that you can do with composition to Lizardmen to make them not. Like, I mean, in terms of just changing what units you can take, I just don't think there's anything there that you could do with Lizardmen. I mean, or with Ogres, really, to make them. Unless you're like Mournfang and BSBs on Thunder Tusks are core guys. Let's go.
Don't say buy another army for Lizardman players, because Sam's just bought a whole Lizardman army. So
also, they might just buy another army and it's demons or ogres, and then or Skaven, and then they're still in the same spot.
You just buy an army that is supported by the game, that's written into the rules and isn't a fake army.
Just buy Bretonnian Exiles, right?
I mean, so I think the challenge for me is it's actually not the competitive end, because I think the competitive end for me has worked quite well. The tournaments.
Yes, and the competitive end is people that understand that it's going to, like, if they get absolutely wrecked by something, they're probably aware that thing exists, and they're probably going to be okay with it. Yeah, oh damn, they lost the game, they didn't get the matchup they wanted, but they're not. The competitive player isn't someone that's going to be like, oh, I'm having a really bad time playing this game, I don't know why, and I'll play something else. I think you're right.
There is a potential problem even for the people who, like, as Dave is saying, love the super technical competitive end of the game. I really enjoy that style of game. However, when there's only 9 or soon to be 10 armies, and only a subset of those have effective builds at that top end, my worry would be replayability, even for people who really enjoy that style of game. If we get to the point where we know exactly what every build that's sort of viable is, because there's not actually that many to choose from, and then you end up with games playing out pretty similarly, unless we start adding in more scenarios or something like that. So there's other levers that we can pull.
And even across those armies, like, since the change to Sisters of the Thorn, are the Wood Elf, Dark Elf, and High Elf armies competitively really that different? Like, they have slightly different swap out bits, but they're really playing the same game, right? They're playing some shooting, some fast stuff, and then a dragon that does everything else that matters for you. And the same with, like the Tomb King list as opposed to the other teleporting lists. Is it really that different, the list that you're playing? So I think that is, you're right, Chris, that is a concern. I think you could probably address that stuff more easily with composition limits. But I think how do you make Skaven that aren't some incredibly janky teleport list actually playable?
So I don't. One suggestion from the olden times, which I haven't seen get any traction yet, that might be interesting, is what the ETC used to do, which was give some of those armies extra points and make their casualties count as less. Give them 10% more points in their army, and when they lose points, when you're calculating victory points at the end of the game, reduce the amount that they've lost by. So they're effectively still playing with, counts as 2,000 points, but your Lizardmen now have 2,400. Your Demons can get that second Soul Grinder, and they're not giving up the extra points for taking more of those units in return. I think that's like a stopgap. It's imperfect, kind of a blunt instrument, but it's probably more to my taste than trying to rewrite the rules for those armies.
And I think it would be fun. And also just thematically thinking about playing against 24, 25, 2,600 points of Skaven seems about right. Like, that's how many rats there should be. for for the ogres
Well,
that you have or whatever.
what do we think of some of the changes in the Square Base Renegades pack, where they've basically just removed all of the 0 to 1 restrictions, or unit locks, where like you have to take a skink character with to unlock pterodons and things like that. Like, what do we think about that kind of style of comp?
I think it touches on, or how I feel about it is what Chris is saying more broadly, is that like rules changes, I don't think are probably the answer, and also in just at the very base level, like if it's something like changes to an army list that is somewhere on the internet in a PDF that someone's written that you only have really if you listen to the right podcasts or are in the right discords, then like having to find out like where that is and go and read that to then not like it's just another thing somewhere out in the world to go and have to read and look at to understand what's going on in the game. Whereas if
Is that
it's
because it's too many
compositional
changes in it?
then I don't think it matters what the changes are necessarily, although it doesn't really affect how I feel about it. I think that's like something that belongs in maybe a tournament pack for a tournament that someone's running, but for someone to put it out in the world and say, let's just play it this way. I like.
If it was part of a tournament pack, would you feel differently?
Yeah, because it's a tournament pack. Then I'm going to that tournament. I'm reading the pack, or event rather than tournament. Let's say event pack, and I'm going to that event, so I will read the pack and I'll know what to expect. But I think putting that out in the world means that people say, "Oh, can we play these rules that my friend made up? Can we play with those?" And you go, "Oh, I haven't read those." No, and then they feel bad, and then you feel bad, and I think it breeds more negative experiences.
So I massively disagree. I think you're spot on wrong, because I think
yes, let me have it.
Making those changes, yeah, I would have loved that pack to have been play tested a bunch first, rather than it just going on vibes. And I would have loved for it to have a more broad view of rebalancing, rather than just trying to make like lizards and demons good. But so for like with our group, we've started to use it for some recent games. This is not competitive. Like, this is people playing casual games, right? But what it means is that there is a way for us in the group. We've got people who play demons, people who play lizards, people who play Skaven, people who play ogres, and that they are able to play more fun games, because the way that the rewrite means that like the slan works kind of more intuitively, and that the Screaming Bell and the Altar of Blood are not incredibly bizarre in terms of how they work with dragged along. And also, when you're talking about tournament organizers, if your tournament organizer is, Nick Hohen, who's super onto a bunch of the details about debates online about balance, he might be able to write a comp pack that makes sense. But if you're a local store owner, or you're someone who organizes a bunch of different events for different game systems, you're not going to be able to sit down and go, what comp pack should I do to make lizards good but not too good? And having something off the shelf that you can just pick up and say, this is a model, it's not the one everyone has to run, but I'm going to run it because I think it means that we'll see more diversity of armies. And if someone, Timmy turns up with his whatever army, you can play more fun games. I think it's real possible. The other big one I think here is that we're potentially missing is we're talking about the future of next games. Games Workshop has told us these armies are dead and they're not doing anything with them. And they might change their mind on that, but I don't think we can assume that they're going to change their mind on that with all of them, or what time scale that might occur. Because in the past, when they've said armies are dead for other game systems, they've been dead for an exceedingly long time. For squats, it was, 24 years or something like that, that they had them dead for. And I think this idea that we'll just recomp balance something like Lizardmen and Skaven really stand out to me as just being incomplete rule sets that weren't written properly. Or like Dark Elves, where rules like Murderous do not work on any unit in the army because they wrote the rules wrong, that actually they just need rules changes. And I'm fairly unconvinced. Maybe you give Dark Elves more points and they are more competitive, but does the fact that their list has been written in a kind of, my Dark Elves aren't as bad, does the fact that the Skaven list has been written in a shoddy way that doesn't make a lot of sense become more fun with more points. I'm just not sold. And I think if we
Yeah,
take the case that we're never going to get a rules update, why not do it?
I have another question for you, Dave, and I think I mean, it's a little bit devil's advocate, a little bit provocateur, and I don't know if I believe it, but then it's interesting to think about what the company that makes the game is thinking about this game as. Like they've been pretty blunt with being clear, just really clear and saying it's a new game. It's not Warhammer Fantasy. It's called The Old World, and so. Is it just that all of us, 30 plus people that have played Warhammer Fantasy and love these armies really want those to be a part of this game, but the Games Workshop actually just have no interest in putting them back in and digging up the past, and they're going to expand to Border Princes and Cathay and Kislev and go the other way? And is this furor about making the legacy armies part of the game again like justified, or is it just a generational like nostalgia that we're all feeling that actually doesn't really matter for the success of the game?
I think as a point in time, it could work for the next year or two or however long. But until Games Workshop, as you say, like they might go down a different path of different armies, blah blah blah. But they actually need to map out that and actually communicate that and like show what their journey to getting there is. Otherwise, the community is going to go in all these different weird directions. And probably the other thing I'd probably say is that sounds like Danny, if this was a tournament pack and then people were like, can we use this tournament pack from Square-based GT or whatever, you'd be 100% okay with it. But because it's not in a tournament pack, it's in just a random PDF document, you're not violent.
No. I know when I said sorry. No, I see what you mean. When I said I'd be okay with that if it was in a tournament pack, I mean if it was not pushed as like this is how everyone should change the game and we should all play like this. If it was just like this is how I'm running my event, and maybe it's just like my ingrained generational tall poppy syndrome from Australia that makes me a little anti someone having the guts to stand up and say, I think my way is best. That might be it as well.
I'm going to say something and then kind of contradict it immediately. And the first is to say that in the pitch for the document, from Val from Squarebase was kind of saying like, here's a thing, it vibes with me. You can use it if you want. I'll probably use it for some of the events I run. The kind of like, hey, everyone should play with this pack has come more from what I can see, like online discourse, people in Discord forums, commenters on YouTube channels. Yeah, that's you typing right now. I know it. But
all play Skaven or Lizardman.
And so on the one hand, I don't think Val's messaging matches up with the way the pack has kind of been adopted by some people. But at the same time,
yeah, that's fair.
And this is my contradiction of that. I wish the messaging had been a bit different. I wish it said, look, this is like a long-term project. Here's draft one. Play it in your pickup games. Groups like Dave's. Give it a workout. See what works and what doesn't. Where have we gone too far? Where do we still need to change some other things? We'll do a second document. We'll do a third document. And then at some point, we're going to say, look, we think this is really good. Now is where we think it should be like a kind of tournament ready version, replace the legacy PDFs. That's a process I would have been much more eager to jump on board with. That's messaging that would have made me much happier with the kind of goal of the project. Whereas the sort of pitch was just like, here's a thing we haven't tested. Whoever yelled the loudest at me on Discord got to basically wishlist their Lizardman 8th edition broken shit back in. Do what you want with it. I would love there to have been a little bit more testing before the initial release, and then some really clear messaging about iterative improvements with the long-term goal of replacing the PDFs that Games Workshop have told us aren't going to get updated themselves. That would have been my ideal version of how this had gone.
Yeah.
I'm sure I said that. That's what I wanted 20 minutes ago.
So I think the early question you had there, Danny, in relation to that, of whether this is just kind of irrelevant because people are new stuff. I don't see it. Like you see vampire count armies everywhere. You see vampire counts at least in the UK super popular, one of the probably top 5
Same here.
popular armies. And I think lots of people are into the Warhammer world outside of playing the game. They've played Total War, they've consumed YouTube lore videos. And I think that actually, especially like Skaven and Lizardmen really feel like kind of quite core to the old world. And so I think there is appetite for them more than there is for Cathay. And that even the really cool Cathay stuff that's going to come out, people are going to want to do Lizardmen armies. And why we haven't seen lots of Lizardmen armies is not because there's not an appetite for Lizardmen armies. It's because the rules are shit and they're not thought through. And so I think that for me, I don't know. I just think we need to be taking Games Workshop's own claims more honestly, which is that people, at least where I live, which is quite close to Nottingham, keep telling me there's going to be some rebalance comp change that's going to be coming out, and it's going to come out in 15 minutes time. You know, guys, it's going to come out next. And they've been saying that to me for like 9 months, and these are people who are in proximity of Warhammer World, playing games with people involved in the rule design, all that stuff. I just think let's take GW at their word, which is we are on our own and they're not touching that stuff.
Yeah. Interesting. I thought it's been very interesting talking to all you guys about this. God, I miss making podcasts with you guys. How are we all doing for time? Does anyone have anything burning they want to say? It's been an hour and 20. It's a pretty long old chat for us.
Do you want to hear about Chris's events that he's been running? Probably to close us out.
Because you've been doing some stuff on top of missions and stuff, Chris, right?
Yeah, like I didn't want to really kind of hijack the conversation before, which I thought was much more general and kind of looking at what we might hope to get out of tinkering with composition and rules changes and the like. I've run 2 events recently. One, it was with the kind of tournament convention was set up through Vlad's Emporium here in Glasgow, but the actual like tournament I just ran myself and did like a no comp pack with 5 rounds of open battle because it's the only good scenario in the book. And then the second one, we went running with Pash, who's got the Pashhammer YouTube channel. We did a full-on composition set of restrictions and played like new scenarios with objectives that rewarded units of core units with 10 or more unit strength. So we pulled all the levers at once for kind of changing the way the game works, apart from changing how like the actual rules of units themselves. And it seemed to be pretty well received. We put a cap on how many points you could spend on characters, a cap on how much of your unit strength could be in one unit. So forcing people away from Death Stars and all their points in characters, in combination with scenarios that really incentivized having at least 3 scoring units. So 3 infantry units with probably a fair bit more than 10 models in them to try and capture those objectives. And the objective points were huge. We were just playing the Upon Shrouded Shores scenario that Games Workshop released in their narrative pack a little while ago, and then added those objectives into an open battle for the final game. Most people took armies that looked pretty different to what they normally take and looked a lot closer to what an 8th edition or a 7th edition army would have looked like. That was partly because they were forced to through the comp restrictions, and partly because they wanted to try and maximize the chance to do well on the scenarios. There were some things to tweak for a second version, and we'll have a go at that. But like one of the things that was really noticeable is that the kinds of armies people were taking at the second comped event looked a lot more like the kind of armies that I would like to be playing with and against than the armies that were showing up to the non-comped event. There's some self-selection, like people don't always run the full filth. Lots of people have more moral backbone than I do in that regard. But it was still like really noticeable that even people who were trying to win the event had taken lists that looked a lot more varied and had many fewer points in those big unkillable things than we might have seen if we were running without comp.
Did it pay off? The lists that leaned away from normal competitive choices, Like, if you ran the event with the same restrictions again, do you think people would still make that choice to invest in unconventional choices, or would they just choose to go skelly archers teleporting around?
So some of those changes they were prevented from doing at all by the comp pack itself. So we had a cap of, I think, 1/3 of your unit strength in one unit, and in the next version we're actually going to dial that up a bit more to make your sort of biggest unit even smaller. So there's some like just prevention measures in there, and then the other one is if you've only got like one scoring core unit, you're going to struggle to win, at least winning big, given how many scenario points that were available with that setup. And so I think people trying to maximize, not any attention to aesthetics or the feel of things. If people were just trying to maximize their chances to win, their armies would still look quite a lot different to your kind of typical mortuary cult lists, your Warriors of Chaos, Dragon spam lists. Bretonnians would look a bit different as well, not because of the kind of core requirements. Their normal core would do pretty well, but we had a flyer cap as well. No more than 1/3 of your army could fly, and so that would
1/3 points wise or unit strength wise or
points wise. And so that would change up the Bretonnian lists quite a bit to have just a lot more knights.
Yeah.
So, and some of that's forced, some of that is incentivized. And I don't know exactly what it would look like. Any comp pack with like hard restrictions will get broken, and at some point people will work out what the most optimal things are. That's part of why changing, being able to change the levers that you're pulling, I think is really good to keep things fresh, and why my preference would be for events to have a variety of setups that they're running. The difference between being told, hey, like you have to take more knights in your Bretonnian army at this tournament, to like, hey, demons have a true 5-up ward save at this tournament. I don't know. There's lots of different things we can do to try and create the game we want to play, basically. And the approach we were taking was trying to do that through some mostly pretty broad, but in some cases quite severe restrictions, like only 1/3 of your points in characters, affects every army. But has a significant impact on how every army is constructed and looks on the tabletop. And then the scenarios as well.
Was your intention with that to see more armies, or to see the people who are taking Bretts and Tomb Kings take funner stuff? Like, did you expect to see more Skaven or Lizardmen, or did you just expect the people who are running Bretts to have less flying circuses, or
The goal primarily was to bring the make the top end of armies, or the kind of most competitive armies, more fun and engaging to play with and against, rather than to make the armies that are currently super underpowered more powerful. So that, like, a different goal to the square base pack, for example. I think there's a bit of that balancing that happens to some extent anyway, in that armies that don't have access to lots of super good flyers don't care about a restriction on the number of flyers you can take, for example. But that's not enough to make Skaven and Lizardmen good. You could combine the comp set we used with the Renegades pack, for example, if you wanted to approach both of those goals at once, or you could add some different lines into the composition sort of restrictions to give the less powerful armies a boost. So there's still more.
You can make them army based, right? So like some of Skaven and Lizardmen, actually, you can do whatever you want, like within the 2,000 points, right? Like you can have 1,000 points of characters if you want. Go nuts.
Yeah.
So like there's some of the decisions you could make too.
Yeah, look, there's just so many different levers that we can pull, and like different things that we can try to shift things in a good direction. And as long as people are kind of like clear with how they communicate it, and then people are, I guess the most important thing, people are like respectful to TOs who are trying things that are different. Like then I think we'll progress in the right direction. As long as we don't get too much of the like, everyone has to play my way kind of approach, then I think we'll be fine.
And it's also self-selecting as well. I mean, that's not the right term, but like, because at the end of the day, there's not 12 million Warhammer players, there's small scenes in every area, and you're not playing the rest of the world. You're playing the people in your area or the people in your city at a bigger event. And if you're super lucky, maybe some people from overseas. But I think keeps it fresh. And if every single event I went to had a different set of either comp or restrictions or rules, I think that's fun. I think that's great.
That'd be exhausting
Yeah.
if you have to paint new stuff every time.
Well, if you just
Yeah,
painted
it's an
more
excuse
instantly
to.
the first time, you could use the same army at every event.
And I mean, oh no, we're Warhammer enthusiasts. We really hate buying and painting models. We're in this because we think it's fun.
That shit's expensive.
That's right. Yeah, that is true.
So I just wanted to mention a couple of the players here in Scotland, Tom and Lucas, who totally independently of all of the tournament and comp discussion, they're mostly Flames of War players, I think, historically. And Warhammer was their fun game. And they were playing the old world, and they just decided, look, this stuff doesn't really work. And it started putting together their own rules changes and composition restrictions and stuff just for when they were playing against each other. And, they were trying to work out how to make the game as fun as it could be for them. And I guess my approach to all of this debate about comp restrictions and renegade packs and all of this stuff is basically the same thing, but on a wider scale. How can we recreate that process? And that for them, it's an iterative and negotiating process, lots of discussion and trial and error. How can we do that in a way that will kind of translate to big events with lots of people coming together from different scenes? That's the hope anyway for me, and why I'm kind of trying to be the change I want to see in the scene and write the correct comp pack that
the correct one. That's right. Yeah,
the right one.
That's the magic word, isn't it?
But I mean, you're absolutely right. I think, and there's all this discussion. I feel like a lot of it can get very you focus on what you want to change, but I feel like everyone I've met playing the old world is great, and I think everyone wants the best for their game. That's why we're trying to try different stuff to make it more fun for everyone. So I think we're in a good spot. If this is the response, is an active and engaged community that are people like yourself, Chris, actively trying to make the game fun for everyone, no matter what army you play. It's the future is bright.
As long as you don't play Skaven.
Skaven. If you play Skaven, get in the bin. No, not at all. How about we wrap it? That's an hour and a half of podcasting. Look at that. That's wild.
Go us.
Well, I'll see you all, I guess, in another 4 to 6 months.
Next quarter, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Next quarter. No, we'll have a lot of even though Nick is like an absentee father, he ostensibly is still helping me run Snake Eyes. So we'll have a lot more to say about that in the coming months. I predict a slightly more regular schedule, at least until the hype for that is over. We'll want to talk about Arc and whether or not the Melbourne's first GT in the old world has more than 7 players or not. We'll see. There's so much.
The greatest tournaments.
The grandest of tournaments. It's just round robin with 6 blokes. 6 rounds, actually. But yeah, if anyone got any closing notes, Dave, Lachie.
Don't fail your strength test.